Every philosophy this game will spend 40 more hours developing is already present in the first area, before you fought a single boss that matters. Highwall isn't just an opening area, it's a thesis statement. And 10 years later, it's worth actually asking what that thesis is. Not what the level teaches you mechanically, but what it's quietly arguing about loss, identity, and what it means to keep going. The first thing the game shows you isn't a threat, it's scale. You're small, the world is old, and everything around you was clearly built by people who are gone now. That's not incidental set dressing, it's an argument, made visually before a single word of dialogue. You are arriving very late to something. Nothing you do here is a beginning, it's an inheritance. Most games open by making you feel powerful, or at least capable. The controls respond, the tutorial confirms you're doing things right, and the fiction reassures you that you matter to the story. Highwall does something closer to the opposite. It opens by making you feel like a footnote. Everything of consequence already happened. You're just the latest person unlucky enough to wake up afterward. This is where the game quietly stakes out a position on identity itself. These were people. Now they're husks that still walk, still stand guard, still go through the motions of lives they no longer remember having a reason for. The game never explains hollowing with a mechanic screen or codex entry you can skip. It just shows you over and over bodies that kept moving after whatever made them someone had already left. That's not a monster design choice. That's a claim about what a self actually is. Something that can be worn away by time, even while the body keeps functioning. It's a genuinely uncomfortable idea if you sit with it. That you can lose the thing that makes you, you, gradually, without a single dramatic moment marking the loss, and keep existing anyway, indistinguishable from the outside for a long time before anyone, including yourself, notices what's gone. And after the game refuses to let you feel superior to them, which is the crueler and smarter choice, you are one bad ending away from becoming exactly this. Hollowing isn't a fate reserved for enemies. It's a mechanic that applies to your own character too. Tracked, visible, always encroaching. Highwall introduces the monster and the mirror in the same 20 minutes and doesn't bother telling you which one you're looking at. That's for you to notice. Multiply that one hollow by the dozen or so scattered through this level, standing at odd intervals along walls that used to be actively defended, and the area stops being a combat gauntlet and starts becoming something closer to a monument to whatever this place was defending against. A defense that clearly, eventually, failed. The dragon is where the philosophy gets more specific and more direct. Every action game teaches you, eventually, that effort produces mastery, that persistence closes the gap between you and any obstacle in your path. Grind enough, learn enough, try enough times, and the walls between you and victory comes down. It's one of the most reliable promises the genre makes. The dragon is the game's first and clearest refusal of that promise. You cannot outtry this. You cannot level enough, learn enough, get good enough to make this fight winnable here, at this point in the game with what you currently have. The only available response is humility, not defeat, exactly, but acceptance of scale. Some things are simply larger than your effort can account for, and the correct response isn't struggle, it's proportion. Knowing your size relative to what you're looking at, and choosing to walk past it rather than prove something to it. That's a genuinely rare thing for a game to teach in its opening minutes, because it runs against almost everything the medium usually promises a new player. Most games' first hour is reassurance. This one's first 20 minutes includes a direct, visible statement that some problems are not yours to solve, at least not yet, and possibly not even ever. And it doesn't just appear once and disappear. It stays visible from multiple points across the level, watching from different angles as you move through everything else. The game keeps reminding you of the thing you can't solve, even while you're busy solving smaller things. That's deliberate. Scale isn't a lesson you learn once and move past. It's a condition the level keeps you inside of. Vort takes the same idea and turns it inward, from something too big to fight into something too broken to save. He's chained, restrained not as punishment but as containment. The last kindness anyone thought to offer something that could no longer be trusted with freedom. Sit with that framing for a second, because it's doing more work than it looks like. A chain implies someone still cared enough to contain rather than simply kill. Whoever did this to Vort wasn't looking for revenge. They were managing a tragedy as gently as a tragedy that size allows to be managed. And when you fight him, you're not defeating evil in any straightforward sense. You're ending a long, undignified holding pattern that someone else started and couldn't finish. The game is quietly asking what mercy looks like when redemption is no longer on the table. Is killing something an act of cruelty, or is it the only remaining act of care available to anyone? Dark Souls 3 doesn't answer that question here. It just makes you the one who has to act on it, without ever telling you which answer you choose. And once he's gone, the room doesn't celebrate. There is no fanfare built into the architecture itself. No triumphant lighting change, just the same cold stone, minus one more thing that used to be alive in it. The level doesn't let the fight feel like a victory. It lets it feel like what it actually was, an ending administered by you to something that couldn't end itself. Which brings you eventually to the fall. No visible landing, no confirmation prompt, no safety net offered by the interface, the way most games would soften a moment like this with a glowing outline or a press X to descend safely reassurance. Just a choice to trust a world that has given you very little reason to trust it up to this point. Because the alternative, standing at the edge forever, isn't actually a choice at all. It's just delay wearing the costume of caution. That's arguably the whole philosophical position of the entire game, compressed into one jump. Certainty was never coming, no matter how long you waited for it. Move away, not because you resolved your fear, because waiting for the fear to resolve first was never actually on the table. Put these together, and Highwall isn't really teaching you combat philosophy. Even though combat is the language it happens to use, it's teaching you a way of encountering loss piece by piece before the game trusts you with anything else. Scale you can't fight. Identity that can erode without a single dramatic moment marking the loss. Mercy that sometimes looks like ending things instead of saving them. And forward motion that happens without guarantees, because guarantees were never coming. That's not a video game's first level in any conventional sense. That's closer to a worldview, delivered entirely through architecture, silence, and the specific placement of a chain, a watching dragon, a blind drop. Nothing in this level tells you what to think. It just arranges 20 minutes of evidence and waits to see what you notice. 10 years on, what strikes me most isn't that philosophy is complicated. It isn't. It's almost embarrassingly simple once you say it out loud. Everything ends. Most things end badly, and you keep walking anyway. What's remarkable is that Dark Souls 3 never says that sentence once. Not in any item description, not in any piece of dialogue. It just built an entire level that means it. In every hollow along the wall, and every chained monster, and every blind drop. And trusted you to feel it before you could ever explain it. That's the real 10-year lesson, I think. Not that the level holds up, that it never needed to explain itself to work in the first place. And somehow, A decade and thousands of hours of community discussion later, we're still the ones doing the explaining it never asked for.